Hey everyone, welcome back to Real Talk. I'm Josh, and today I want to talk a little bit about uh, Latin Heritage Month. So I think it's something that goes well beyond a list. I mean, it's a celebration of storytelling, culture, and voices that shape how we see the world, but through film, right? So if you're new here, Real Talk is where I dive into movies that matter, the ones that entertain us, challenge us, and sometimes change us. So if that sounds like your kind of crowd, hit subscribe, tap the notification bell, and please join the conversation below because, as I like to say, nothing draws a crowd like a crowd. So I always want to thank you for joining this crowd. Now, as Latino Heritage Month begins to come to a close, I believe it's September 15th through October 15th, I just wanted to take a few minutes, not just to celebrate the incredible range of Latin storytelling, but to remind us all that the month may end, but the stories shouldn't. Latin voices have shaped film history in ways that I think often go overlooked, from the poetic realism of Alfonso Cuarón's Roma to the heart-pounding thrills of Robert Rodriguez's whole filmography, specifically From Dusk Till Dawn, the emotional depth of Pixar's Coco. These Latin filmmakers, actors, and writers, they've been redefining genres and reimagining what that representation on screen can look like, and they've been doing it for decades. And what's powerful is this: these aren't just Latin films, these are human stories, universal stories. They explore love, grief, identity, belonging, the same emotional truths that we all wrestle with, just seen through the lens of a culture rich with color, rhythm, and heart. So today I'm sharing a list of 13 incredible Latin and Latino centric films across genres, dramas, comedies, horror, animation, even a few that kind of blur those lines completely. Whether you are diving in for the first time or deepening your watch list, I hope this list gives you something to reflect on, something to enjoy, and most importantly, something to support, because representation doesn't stop at awareness. It is about action, about watching these films, sharing them, recommending them, and celebrating the people who make them possible. And I want to be real: Latin cinema is not a monolith, it is a kaleidoscope. It's Mexico, Puerto Rico, Cuba, Colombia, Argentina, Chile, Spain, so many. Each voice unique, each story carrying its own rhythm and soul. You've got magical realism woven through family stories like the film Like Water for Chocolate and Encanto. You've got the social realism and political courage in El Norte and Stand and Deliver. You've got music, memory, multi generational legacy in Coco and La Bamba. And then there's the fresh wave, the hybrid storytellers, indie filmmakers, streaming era visionaries giving us new perspectives and projects, like Cassandro and Gentrified. All of these films are absolutely worth your time, not just because they're important, but because they're good. They are emotional, they're cinematic, they make you laugh, cry, think, sometimes all at once. But the main thing I want to emphasize is just because Latin Heritage Month ends doesn't mean the celebration should. Culture doesn't fit neatly into our calendar. These stories, their humor, their heartbreak, their hope, they deserve to live in our watch lists, our conversations, and our hearts all year long. So maybe today, pick one of these films, watch it with friends or on your own with a bowl of popcorn, but most importantly, an open mind. Let it take you somewhere new. Let it remind you how much richness, creativity, and power comes from amplifying voices beyond the mainstream. And before we dive into the list, do me a favor, drop a comment below. Tell me your favorite Latin film or filmmaker. It could be something you grew up with, something that moves you recently, or something you think more people should know about. Let's keep the conversation going beyond this month. And as always, make sure you like, subscribe, and share this episode with someone who loves film as much as you do. And you can find us everywhere at Real Talk. And as always, thank you for being part of the crowd. Now, grab your popcorn, dim the lights, and let's celebrate some Latin cinema, one reel at a time. Okay, so let's get into the real of it, the movies. Because what better way to honor Latin Heritage Month than by celebrating the filmmakers, actors, storytellers who have helped shape how we see the world, not just in this month, but always. Now, I've pulled together a list of films that span some different eras, tones, and genres, from grounded drama to surreal magic. And these aren't just movies about the Latin identity, they're movies that express it, they challenge it, and they celebrate it in ways that to me feel deeply human. So grab a notepad or just a screenshot because this list is packed. Let's start with drama and identity category. First up, 2018's Roma. If you've never seen Alfonso Cuarón's Roma, it is an experience, not just a movie. Shot in black and white, it is personal, almost meditative look at class and motherhood and memory set in 1970s Mexico City. It's not about big sweeping plot twists. It's about moments. The sound of water, the chaos of family life, the quiet resilience of Cleo, a domestic worker holding a fractured world together. When Roma dropped on Netflix, it didn't just win awards. It reminded mainstream audiences that Mexican cinema is world-class storytelling at its most intimate. Next up is Como Agua para Chocolate, which, like Water for Chocolate from 1992, one of the most iconic examples of magical realism ever put on film. It's got everything: forbidden love, family duty, and emotions so strong they literally infuse the food being cooked. It's sensual, tragic, funny, and it's filled with symbolism. Every meal is a message, every recipe a spell. If Roma feels like a memory, like Water for Chocolate feels like a dream you wake up from, heart full, stomach growling, and somehow wiser about love and loss. Now, moving into something a little more inspirational, 1988's Stand and Deliver. Edward James Olmos gives a powerhouse performance as Jaime Escalante, a real-life math teacher who believed that his East LA students could achieve greatness in calculus, and he proved it. It's not flashy, it's not horror, but it's got that same energy. Defiance in the face of a system that underestimates you. This movie became a cultural touchstone for Latin representation in the 80s and 90s classrooms. A reminder that brilliance exists everywhere if someone believes in it enough to nurture it. And then there's 1987's La Bamba, the story of Richie Valens, one of rock's first Mexican-American stars. This is one of those rare films that feels like both a celebration and a eulogy about music, family, and what it means to make history when the world isn't ready for you. Lou Diamond Phillips brings Richie's story to life with warmth and heart, while the soundtrack absolutely rips. Even decades later, that final plane scene hits you like a gut punch. You don't just mourn Richie Valens, you mourn every dream that was cut short far too soon. Okay, now I want to shift gears because Latin cinema isn't confined to drama. Some of the best films out there capture the energy of youth, the messiness of love, and the complexity of just being human. So I want to highlight a couple of coming of age and relationship stories. First up, 2001's Y Tu Mama Tambien. The movie is part road movie, part social commentary, part coming of age odyssey. Directed by Alfonso Cuarón. Yes, again, the man's on the list twice for a reason. It follows two teenage boys and an older woman on a road trip through Mexico. But beneath this sun soaked beaches and flirtatious banter, there is a film quietly dissecting class, privilege, sexuality, and the end of innocence. It's provocative, raw, it's unapologetically real. It's the kind of film that makes you reflect on who you were at 17, how much you've really grown since. And then 2000's Amores Perros, Alejandro Gonzalez Inarritu's explosive debut that showed the world that modern cinema could do it all. It's three stories, all colliding around this one car accident in Mexico City. Love, violence, survival, regret, all woven together through the lives of ordinary people and their dogs. It's gritty, emotional, and it's relentless. If Y Tu Mama Tambien is about the beauty of life's transitions, Amores Perros is about this chaos we leave behind in the process. It also paved the way for Inarritu's later work, like Babel and Birdman, proving that Latin storytelling can hit global audiences without losing its authenticity or edge. Right, now, I want to talk a little bit about some animation, family, magical realism stories. And first, I want to start with something that's as visually dazzling as it is emotionally resonant. 2021's Encanto. The film is a magical realist tale set deep in the vibrant landscapes of Colombia. This is one of those films that is, every frame is practically bursting off the screen with color. I mean, the Madrigal house alone is worth a standing ovation, but beyond the visuals, what really sticks with me is how it handles family dynamics and generational trauma. Mirabelle, our central character, she navigates expectations, personal worth, and belonging, all while surrounded by relatives who each have their own gift. It's charming, it's funny, it hits you right in the heart, and it is an absolute masterclass in balancing spectacle with real emotional stakes. And yes, Lin Manuel Miranda's music is stuck in your head forever. Trust me, you will catch yourself humming We Don't Talk About Bruno for days. And if Encanto makes your heart feel full, then 2017's Coco is the film that will make you tear up and then smile through the tears. Set against the rich tradition of Dia de Muertos, Coco is less about fantasy and more about memory, ancestry, and the ties that bind families across generations and even across life and death. The film's exploration of grief and remembrance, wrapped in vibrant animation and an irresistible soundtrack, makes it a story that is both culturally specific and universally relatable. It reminds us that understanding who we are often requires looking back at those who came before us, and that family, in all its messy, complicated glory, is always at the center of our stories. Next, I want to shift gears a little bit and step into some historical, political, cultural type movies. This first one, we step out into the streets and the culture of 1940s Los Angeles for 1981's Zoot Suit. This is a unique hybrid of theater and film, blending these stylized performances with history to tell the story of the Sleepy Lagoon murder trial and the Zoot Suit riots. It's about identity, cultural pride, and resistance, especially Chicano identity. And it makes you think about how performance, clothing, and presentation can become these acts of defiance. Watching Zootsu, you feel the energy of a community grappling with this systemic injustice. And you're reminded that art can be as much a political statement as it is entertainment. And then there's 1983's El Norte, a film that's quietly devastating in its power, following two siblings on this perilous journey from Guatemala to the United States. And the film portrays the immigrant experience with unflinching realism. It's about survival, hope, and the crushing weight of obstacles faced by those who are just trying to seek out a better life. Yet, even in its hardship, the movie finds these moments of beauty, a sunlit landscape, this fleeting connection, a cultural ritual that all linger in your memory long after you've seen the film. It's considered a cornerstone of Latin cinema for a reason. It doesn't just tell a story, it immerses you in a lived experience that feels urgent and necessary. Now, I want to shift into one of my more favorite genres, as we all know, and that's some horror gems in the Latin cinema community. So, first off, want to start with something that is utterly surreal and absolutely disturbing. 2016's We Are the Flesh. This Mexican horror is a body horror fever dream that mixes violence, desire, and the collapse of societal norms in the aftermath of a revolution. It's absolutely not for the faint of heart, but it is an uncompromisingly bold exploration of taboo, family, and survival, and a perfect example of how Latin horror can shock and provoke while offering this deeper metaphorical bite. Next up is 2015's The Similars, a brilliant Mexican homage to 1960s style sci fi and horror. Set in a remote bus station during a storm, passengers begin experiencing strange, terrifying transformations that blur the line between reality and paranoia. It's stylish, it's tense, it's eerily atmospheric, blending the supernatural horror with a social commentary in a way that is distinctly Latin. And the film keeps you guessing while making you think. And it's exactly the kind of credit or horror that lingers after those credits roll. And then finally, I'll end with 2019's La Llorona, the Guatemalan horror film that reimagines the classic folk tale in a political and historical context. Beyond the supernatural scares, the film is a chilling allegory for genocide, trauma, unresolved injustice. It's haunting, elegiac, and emotionally resonant. And it shows how horror can carry both cultural memory and gut punch fear, firmly placing Latin folklore and history right at the center, at the heart of its terror. So, watching and supporting these stories, Latin stories, stories from historically underrepresented communities, is never just about checking a box or marking it on your calendar. It's not about saying, well, it's about that time, it's October, so now I watch one or two films and call it good. It's about actively making space for voices that for far too long have been sidelined, overlooked, or pushed to the margins of the mainstream cinema. When we actively engage with these films, we're doing more than just being entertained. We're witnessing perspectives, lived experiences, and histories that are not always told in Hollywood blockbusters. These stories carry depth, complexity, humor, pain, resilience, and they are all worth the attention. And that's the heart of it. Latin Heritage Month isn't a limit, it's a spotlight, a reminder, a call to pause and reflect, to actively seek these narratives out, celebrate them, and consider how they work to shape our understanding of the world. And here's the thing. Yes, Latin Heritage Month is ending. We're going to move on to something else, but our responsibility doesn't end. It doesn't vanish with a pumpkin spice latte or a leaf falling from the tree. The work continues, the curiosity continues, and our support continues because Latin filmmakers, writers, actors, and creators aren't making their art for just this 1 month of the year. They're making it for us, for everyone. And it's on us to keep noticing, keep sharing, keep amplifying. Look, this can be absolutely as simple as watching a film, following a Latin creator on social media, sharing a story that moved you, or buying a book or supporting a local artist. It's the small, everyday choices that build momentum. That ripple effect matters, and it keeps these stories alive in conversations, in culture, in memory when the month is over. And here's the ultimate truth: representation isn't seasonal. Visibility isn't something you turn on and off. It's a practice, it's a commitment, and it is powerful when we make it consistent. When we allow Latin stories and other historically underrepresented voices to remain and become a part of our rotation all year, then we not only honor the creators, but we expand our own understanding of cinema, society, and ourselves. So where I want to turn it over to you. If you see a title here that you haven't watched, queue it up. Make time for it. Watch it thoughtfully. Reflect on it. And if you already have your own favorite Latin films, the ones that left you thinking, laughing, crying, or just inspired, please drop it in the comments. Let's build a conversation. Let's build a list together, because the beauty of cinema, the whole reason for this channel, is that it is shared, it is communal, it is something we experience and grow from together. So let's make a commitment today, not just for the month, but for every month, every day moving forward. Latin stories stay in the rotation. They stay on our screens, in our playlists, in our discussions, and every time we make the effort to watch, share, or celebrate, we are adding to a culture that values all voices. So thank you. Thank you for being here, for listening as I got on my soapbox, for watching thoughtfully, for taking this moment seriously. You are part of the crowd that matters, the ones that keep elevating stories, keep curiosity alive, and ensure that these voices continue to resonate. Until next time, keep watching, keep learning, and most importantly, keep elevating, because stories, all stories, deserve a seat at the table, and it's up to us to make sure that that seat is never empty. Thanks, everybody.